All right, good morning. You guys can be seated. So this Haftarah portion this week is key Tetze, and it's going to be Isaiah 54, 1 through 10. So one of the main points I want to draw out in this portion is this idea of identity, and specifically how God is able to restore that for us. Israel in this portion is at a point where they had lost their identity in God. They were living in sin and had just received a harsh judgment. And so they were known among themselves as being a faithless nation. That was that identity they had taken upon themselves. But Isaiah 54 takes place after this judgment period, and it's God letting them know that their past decisions and mistakes won't define their future with him. So this promise starts with Isaiah 53, the previous chapter, and this is the famous forbidden chapter of the Bible where it describes the nature and story of the Messiah. It paints the picture of our perfect and innocent Redeemer who took sin upon him to save us from death. Isaiah 54 is the continuation of that promise and a new beginning for Israel. How does that beginning start? It starts with a call to action. Isaiah 54 verse 1 says, "Sing, barren woman, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, shout for joy, you who were never in labor, because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband, says the Lord." So that image of a barren woman is a representation of Israel. In that time period, having children was seen as prosperous and life-giving. It acted as sort of a status symbol, and it meant you were fruitful. Widowed and childless women were often cast out in other societies and seen as less valuable. So for Israel to be represented here as a barren woman, it means they were fruitless in their relationship with God and they were living in shame. That was their identity. The message in this verse for them is to sing and shout for joy. And God isn't promising anything yet, and he's not saying that when your situation changes, you can come to me. He's saying, come to me as you are with all your flaws and sing to me. Sing to me. Come worship with me and shout for joy, knowing that you are loved and valued by your God. He values the broken and barren woman just as much as someone with a faithful and fruitful relationship. He doesn't care about our status or our situation. He still desires a relationship and loves us. So throughout this portion, God reminds us of his role as our creator and our spiritual husband. Isaiah 54 verse 5 says, "For your maker is your husband, the Lord Almighty is his name. The Holy One of Israel is your Redeemer, and he is called the God of earth." So I think it's interesting that, and important to this message, that he describes himself as both our maker and our husband. These are two different types of roles and two different types of love. When I think of the role of a maker, it's akin to being a parent. A parent is supportive and nurturing, but also has to show tough love and discipline. A spouse is a more intimate love, and it's a relationship that you choose and you have to pursue each and every day. We are told to honor our parents, but marriage is a covenant you have to enter into. It's a sacred and holy thing, and violating that covenant is a sin. Israel as a nation is often described as being adulterous. That was the language the prophets has used, and that's the identity they were living in. An adulterous woman is a very negative connotation, and it's a lifestyle that was met with shame and judgment. But here, God is reminding them that he still loves them and that he's still their husband. He doesn't treat them as they were unfaithful, and he doesn't cast them out, but instead he says, "I am your husband still." Despite their adulterous path, he is choosing to love and pursue them each and every day. Throughout these 10 verses in Isaiah, we see that Israel is described as being barren, small, afraid, ashamed, widowed, abandoned, and desolate. That had become their identity, but God takes each one of those flaws and he gives them a new identity, turning them into evidence of his restoration for them. So going back to that barren woman in verse 1, the very next verse, verse 2, God tells her to enlarge the place of her tent, stretch your tent curtains wide, and do not hold back. That barren woman will no longer be barren, but she will be fruitful and multiply. Israel is also described as being a small and fearful nation in this chapter. But in verse 3, God says to them, "You will spread out to the right and to the left, and your descendants will dispose nations." Israel will no longer have to live in fear, but they will walk in a renewed confidence and trust in their God. And then finally, to the ashamed, disgraced, and widowed nation, God says in verse 4, "Do not be afraid, you will not be put to shame. Do not fear disgrace, you will not be humiliated. You will forget the shame of your youth, and remember no more the reproach of your widowhood." This is just such a comforting promise. And the promised Messiah and husband in Isaiah 53 is not concerned with the shame of Israel's past sins. He's not concerned with their behavior or their status now. He is there to restore Israel and to renew their faith, turning their fear into hope, their shame into confidence, and their barren marriage into a fruitful and loving relationship with him. The portion ends with God saying, "In a surge of anger I hid my face from you for a moment, but with everlasting kindness I will have compassion on you, says the Lord your Redeemer. To me this is like the days of Noah, when I swore that the waters of Noah would never again cover the earth. So now I have sworn not to be angry with you, never to rebuke you again. Though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken, nor my covenant of peace be removed, says the Lord who has compassion on you." So here, God reminds them of Noah, which is one of the most important and significant moments of covenant in the Bible. He's promising Israel that he will always love them, and he's establishing a new covenant of peace with them. It's a type of love and covenant that we are just simply unworthy of today. And it's incredible to think that we, in our barren and adulterous ways, are still of value to God, and that he desires a relationship with us, and that he is able to take these flaws and characteristics that we have let become our identity and transform them into a story of victory. Thank you.